Ruslan, why should I be happy? It's a fantastic question. Happiness usually comes from the things that you do or the things that happen to you, right? So happiness is usually, oh, Kanye West followed me on Instagram. Guess what? That made me happy, right? Now, the difference is the world is going to tell you, be happy, follow your passion. I want you to be happy. I just want everybody to be happy. Well, here's the thing about being happy is it's dictated by external things that oftentimes you can't control. Okay, you can't control what happens. I could control whether Kanye followed me or not, right? But, and even though that made me happy, and there's nothing wrong with being happy, joy is different than happiness. Happiness is from the outside in, joy comes from the inside out, okay? So if I'm joyful, there's nothing you can say or do to me to take my joy, okay? If I'm joyful, there's nothing that happens in the external world that can take my joy. And so I recommend that instead of seeking happiness, I recommend that you seek joy. And I think true joy is found in Jesus, because Jesus says, hey, your identity is no longer a sinner, is no longer an orphan, is no longer an addict. Your identity now is a follower of mine. Your identity now is a disciple. Your identity now is a saint. And that is the good news. When your identity is found in Jesus, then you move different. When your identity is not about what happens to you, but what's happened in you, you start seeing the world different. And so you can alleviate some of the toxic thinking. You can alleviate the shame. You can alleviate the condemnation. Why? Because he made him who knew no sin to be sin, so that in him you may become the righteousness of Christ. That is the great exchange. That is the good news. A lot of us are walking around with our head down with this dark cloud over our lives and just bummed out and sad, and why are things not going my way? And it's like, well, fam, you are the righteousness of God. You are an heir to the throne, right? You have immense value, immense worth. You are created in the image of God. You're an image bearer. I don't need no manifestation, meditation. I don't need nothing else. I'm a child of God. I'm an heir to the throne. Jesus loved me so much that he was willing to come live the life I couldn't live, die the death I should have died on the cross in place for my sin, and then just didn't give me a pathway to heaven, but created a pathway from heaven to earth. Why do I need anything else? Why do I need, what else do we need? Right? I don't need any other motivational quote. I don't need manifestations. I don't need any of that stuff, because if your identity is truly in Jesus first, then everything else around the world becomes, it's cool. So where are you finding your identity from? Where are you finding your worth from? Where are you finding your value from? Where are you finding your purpose from? If it's from external things, well, you know what? Jesus was clear. In this world, you will have trouble. You will not always be happy. Your marriage won't always be happy. Your family won't always be happy. Your finances won't always be happy. Your body won't always make you happy. Your job won't always make you happy. Your friends won't always make you happy. In this world, you will have trouble. You don't get to control all the variables that life throws your way. Yes, we can mitigate certain things. Yes, a lot of us need to get healthy. Yes, a lot of us need to lose weight so we don't have comorbidities. Yes, all of that is true, but there's certain things you just can't control when life throws curveballs at you. You can't control certain things, but your joy isn't found in your external circumstances. Your joy is because of what Jesus has done in your heart. And so, why should you be happy? You should be happy because Jesus died and gave you joy, not because the world has esteemed you or you've esteemed you, right? You should be happy because joy comes from the Lord, and that is truly the good news. And those folks who've seen the dark side, those folks that have lived their life without Jesus, like I did up until I was 16 years old, and I went and I got arrested at 12 years old, lost my virginity at 11 years old, was sexually assaulted before that, was smoking weed at 13 years old, getting drunk at 13 years old. Someone that's really went out and done things in the world knows that when they find the truth of Jesus, holy moly, what else is there to compare? Some of y'all been brought up in a Christian family, and that's fantastic. I'm bringing up my son in a Christian family, my daughter in a Christian family. But you may not fully see the scope that, man, what Jesus has for you is so much better than anything that the world has for you. That God's ways are really better than your ways. That living life his way is really better than anything the world can ever do for you. And by the way, the world's always trying to borrow from God. They just don't tell you they're borrowing from God. They say stuff like vibes and manifestations and the universe. A lot of that stuff is borrowed from God. It's borrowed from the Proverbs, right? So just go to the source. What are you trying to bypass the source for? Just go right to the source. And if you want to hear more of my testimony, I have a whole testimony video. It's called Exposed. I go into details about all of it, about being a survivor, about being a refugee, about seeing some wild stuff in my life. And man, there's nothing better than walking with Jesus. There really is nothing better than walking with Jesus. I don't mean that in an abstract sense. I don't mean that even in an emotional sense. I mean that in a, hey, what is your ways? What is your purposes? Let me get in on that. Let me get in on that, and if I'm in on that, I'm going to be all right. Things will work out. I'm going to be all right. Okay, so those are the things that I think, when we talk about happiness and all these things, in this world, you will have trouble. You will, but that's not where your happiness should come from. Your joy, that's not where your joy should come from, So that's how I look at it, man. So put your faith in Christ. If you put your faith in Christ and you then get aligned with his ways, you will always be in his will. You want to know the will of God in your life? It's not a mystical vision, mystical dream, prophetic word anybody's going to tell you. You want to know the will of God for your life? Start living your life God's ways. You want to know the will of God for your life? Start doing things God's ways. Start doing your relationships God's ways. You want to date? You dating somebody? Are you pursuing them the way God would have you pursue them? Or are you just kind of playing with their emotions, playing with their heart, uncommitted, kind of, doing what the world does? You want to thrive and flourish at your job? Okay, great. Work as if you're doing it unto the Lord. That's what this whole love what you do thing is about. Colossians 3:23. Whatever you do, work as unto the Lord, not as unto human masters. Guarantee you show up to work every single day and you work your face off like you're working for Jesus and not for your employer. You know what's going to happen? You're going to find more favor at work. You want to see flourishing in your finances? Here's a big one, right? Vast majority of people die broke without anything. When you see flourishing in finances, start handling your money God's way. Because it's really not your money anyway, right? Your life is on loan to you, according to Matthew 25. Start handling your finances God's way. What do you mean? How about you pay off some of that terrible consumer debt that you have, them credit cards? How about you get on a written budget? How about you live off of less than what you make and invest the rest in yourself, into a retirement fund, what have you? Like if you invest, I don't know if you guys know this, like somebody tried to tell me like, there's no pathways to wealth. Yes, there are. Here they are. You want to know what they are? It's God's ways of handling money. Live on less than what you make and save. Compound interest. That builds $100 a month from the age of like 18 to 65. It turns into like $5 million. It's calculators, depending on how much you're getting in the market. On average, you can get about 10%. Okay, these are real things. But if we're consumed with actually doing things God's way, we won't have any of the other issues we're dealing with that are distracting us. But see, it's funner to be distracted because then, when you're distracted and you're going down a rabbit hole of every new theory, there's no accountability for that. There's, what do I need to save money for? What does it matter how I eat? What does it matter how I take care of my body? What does it matter what kind of husband I am? Why? Because you're just living for the moment. Then you look just like the world. You just kind of dress it up. It's just kind of, it's just a PG version of the world. World's, rated R, NC-17. You just got the PG version of the world because you're still living onto yourself. You're still living in the moment. You want to thrive in any area, pick up this book and examine what God has to say about that. And you'll discover, I'm blowing it. I'm blowing it. And then you say, okay, cool, I'm blowing it. I'm going to change my mind about blowing it. I'm going to get aligned with God's ways. If I get aligned with God's ways, I will be in God's will for my finances. I will be in God's will for my relationship. I will be in God's will for my job. I will be in God's will for my health and my fitness. Right? But nobody wants to talk about this kind of stuff because it's like, we're just, you know, we're going to talk about abstract theology that has no direct impact on you. Oh, Ruslan, what do you think about predestination? Whoa, what about tongues? What about prophetic words and utterance? Like, fam, are you living your life God's ways? What is all this other stuff? He's talking about all this other random stuff. That stuff is fun to talk about, but are you living your life as a disciple of Jesus? And the root word in disciple is discipline. So you got to live discipline. Yeah. Well, how do we grow in discipline? Well, then we start having the interesting conversations. I've never had anybody ask me, how do you grow in discipline, by the way? Never. That's never came up. No one ever like, yo, how do I become more disciplined? So-and-so, what do you think about this? What do you think? Never asked any, never once somebody said, how do you become more disciplined? Get your butt off of Facebook and Instagram for a season. Read a chapter of Proverbs a day. Read a chapter of the Gospels a day. Get your butt up early. Stop going to bed so late. Clean your room. Right? What's that Jordan Peterson quote? Clean your room, clean your home before you criticize the world. Anyway, those are my thoughts on it. So why should you be happy? You should be happy because Jesus's ways are better than your ways.
Kingstream Entertainment. Ruslan.
Yo, thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. If you found it valuable, make sure you hit that like button and are subscribed. The Love What You Do album and apparel launch is here for a limited time. So if you want to partner with what we're doing here, make sure you hit the link in the description or in the pinned comment to pick you up some Love What You Do apparel to partner with what we're doing here on the channel. Thank you so much. Peace.